Hi there, how are you? And welcome to Soundcheck by Support Act. My name is Luke O'Connor. I'm the Industry Relations Manager for Support Act. And today I'm joined by Pixie Weyand from the Zoo. Hey,
Hey,
Pixie.
hello.
Thanks for joining us. So before we dive right into today's conversation, I want to make sure that we remind people about the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline. The helpline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for anyone who works in the arts. So that's not just music, that's in the arts as well. And you can call that helpline on 1-800-959-500. There are qualified mental health professionals who are there to talk to you about anything from your mental health all the way through to financial troubles you might be having. So I encourage you to call that number. Also, if you head to supportact.org.au, you'll find information about our COVID-19 Crisis Relief Fund, which is available to anyone who works in the music industry. If you're doing it tough financially, go over to our website and check out whether you're eligible and do an application now. So, Pixie, what's it like running one of Australia's few remaining independent live music venues? Let's talk generally.
Yeah, like if you ask me now, I'd have a probably very different answer to
Traditionally, what's it like?
6 months ago. I feel so lucky and privileged. I don't necessarily feel like I own it. I'm more of like a zookeeper.
The zookeeper.
The zookeeper. There's a lot of people that have been there longer than me, and have been going longer than me. So I feel like I'm just looking after it, but I feel extremely lucky and privileged to be able to be part of something so special.
Well, as a fellow Queenslander and someone who moved to Brisbane to pursue a career in music, the Zoo was pretty formative in my musical upbringing around 2001. I remember going to the Zoo for the first time to see one of my favorite bands and just going, wow, I definitely got to get some gigs.
Yeah.
It holds an important spot in the heart of Brisbane, doesn't it, the Zoo?
Yeah, I still do pinch myself a lot, especially at those moments where you do get to stop, which can be rare. But when you do actually get to stop, like I think even setting up to reopen, you had those moments of like goosebumps and just in the silence of the room, and like, you know, you're just like, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe like it's happening again, or like, you know, you just have those quick moments. It's fleeting, but real genuine appreciation for it, and I just love it. It's my life, so I'm very lucky.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how did you end up doing what you're doing now? What's the story of Pixie?
Oh, I feel like it's a bit of a convoluted, windy road, but I guess, you know, nothing's really ever.
Feel free to bore us.
Yeah, it's very boring. I don't know. I think everything, I am a big believer in everything happens for a reason. And maybe that's just something that I say to settle myself when things don't happen properly, that I want them to happen, but the way I want them to happen. But without like going into the nuts and bolts of it, I worked in a pretty corporate job. When I moved from Townsville, I was born in North Queensland, so I moved from a little town, didn't go to uni, kind of really hated school, to be honest, and came and just got the first job that I could, which was a great job. And I worked in a really corporate office for about 5 or 6 years. And then it was just like one of those typical moments where I'm like, what am I doing? I am not a corporate person. I love everything music. I love creative things. And so I just kind of jolted out of that really quickly. And I went and worked out at the mines as a cleaner. I had no money, obviously, and I knew I wanted to start my own business and start my own thing. So yeah, I went and worked at the mines as a cleaner for a couple of years and tried to save up some money so I could start my own business, which actually was a little organic cafe opposite the zoo, which is where it kind of like the link began. And the landlord of the zoo also owned the coffee shop, which I took over. At the coffee shop, we did lots of interaction with music. So that was where Feed Music started, which was, it was basically, we gave touring artists free food. So any artist, there was like all vegetarian, all organic. So anytime there was a band that came to Brizzy, they could come in and grab a free feed while they were on tour. And that was kind of, I guess, my little reach out to the music industry to just be like, I really care, I'm here, how can I help? It was about 2.5 years into that where I got approached by the landlord of the zoo. And he kind of he knew how much I love music, and he was like, Pixie, and I remember this conversation. I remember where I was standing. I remember he was sitting having lunch, and I was just walking past. He was like, Pixie, come over here. And I was like in a rush somewhere, and he's like, and I kind of stood, and he's like, how would you feel about owning a live music venue? And my like heart just went, well, obviously, like, of course. And I didn't know what he meant. And he's like, oh, well, there might be something at the zoo. I think you'd be a good fit. And it was just like the penny had dropped. It was like that, everything was clear for the first time, maybe in my life. And I was like, that's what I got to do. That's exactly what I've been working for. And no one in their right mind would have like just taken me off the street. I had no business experience at all, like none. I had no idea what I was doing. So I think Lost Boys, the cafe, kind of prepped me a lot, for hard work and running a business and making mistakes and figuring it out. And working at the wines definitely prepped me for hard work. That was 70-hour weeks, 4 weeks straight, 10-hour days, cleaning toilets. It was awful, but you know, like everything led to something. And yeah, so he offered me a meeting with Jock, the previous owner, and I met with her, and it was a bit of a courting process. And, you know, there was a couple other people that she was really interested in. But in the end, I feel like it just came down to that. We were quite similar, I think. I like to hope. We still talk a lot. Like, we still talk pretty frequently. Her son, Walt, came in and started working some shifts, and he had his 18th birthday. So I feel like we had this similar outlook on life and what we wanted out of the venue. And that's kind of, it was like history had repeated itself. Jock had essentially ran it herself for 25 years. And it was my landlord's dad who offered it to her, and it was his son that offered it to me. So it was just this really beautiful, it was just this really nice synergy, I think. And it all kind of came together.
I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And so, that's kind of in a really quick nutshell how it all happened. But yeah, again, like, no idea what I was doing. I'd never booked a band. I didn't even know what a guarantee was for an artist. Like, I'd zero clue. So it was a very quick learning. I've been thrown in there, but Jock was amazing. She kind of walked me through it for the first, like, before I took over, allowed me to come in and learn a bit of stuff before I actually fully was on my own. But yeah, it's been a very interesting journey so far, going from, I guess, zero knowledge to, I feel like, fairly good understanding now of the industry.
So before we dive into like what's been happening for the last few months, I mean, one thing that we hear all the time at Support Act is like the importance of mentorship when coming into the music industry. Like, obviously it was so important to you to be able to learn from someone like Jock, because also she quite transformative in Brisbane's music scene herself, like being, you know, a woman running an independent music venue in the Valley, which was rough as guts back in those days, like 25 years ago. So you must have got a lot out of that relationship.
Yeah, I did. And I still do. Like, I think it's quite rare that, you know, you do have that relationship from previous business owner to current. You usually generally cut ties, but yeah, I still get a lot out of our relationship, and we always texting or emailing, and just, you know, and in hard times, I'll give her a ring. And yeah, I think it's been really nice that she always told me all these little things as we went along. Like, it goes up and down. You just need to be able to hold out through the downs, and like, you just rely on the locals. And it's so true. Like, everything she's kind of said to me is real and true. But yeah, I've definitely had a lot of people that I've reached out to in for support. But I think the music industry is tough because you kind of can't rely on anyone. It's this weird space that, like, it's mythical. There's no real way to get in it. You can go and study, but it's all about who you know, and it's annoying sometimes, or like your connections and your networks. And I mean, that's great, but at the same time, like, it's really difficult. And I feel for people who are like, I really want to get in the music industry. I'm like, oh God, I don't know, don't do it.
As an ex-booking agent, before I worked for Support Act, I myself have had those moments where I'm going, what am I doing? And if anyone says, I'd love to do what you're doing, I'm like, I'm not so sure you do.
Stay away. I don't know.
Any job can be like that. So let's talk about when coronavirus hit. And obviously the music industry was one of the first industries that was hit so negatively by the cancelling of everything. Yeah. What did that look like for you at the zoo?
Dark, black.
You have a maximum of 2 swear words on this conversation as well.
Oh, it was fucked. Like, the only way I can describe it is like black. Like, if I think of a color, it's like, oh, I don't know. I just think of it as like this blackness. I don't know. It was just, it was not a nice day. You know, I remember it. Like it was almost like it was a single day that it happened. It was weird. Like it was, yeah, for me, it's been a really interesting few months. So, and, you know, I think it's kind of nice having this conversation because on the outside, maybe, I don't know, a lot of people might assume that things are all rosy and, oh, you're so lucky and you have the best life and all these good things happen. But it's like, this last 6 months has been the hardest 6 months of my whole life. And I didn't think I could have topped last year, you know, and last year things were going okay. But like financially, the zoo's never really been in like a profitable, it's not a profitable business. It's a business based on love and passion, 100%.
Yeah.
And so we've just got through, each year is like a celebration, you know, each year we're alive. We're like, we made it another year. And I think for me personally, I'm always seeking out other things that I can learn just so I can not have something to fall back on, but like, who knows what's going to happen, you know? And I've always had that attitude of like trying to learn. So like, I guess pre-COVID, like I worked as a booking agent. So I did that full time. I worked as a booking agent. I've worked in like touring. And I've always tried to, I guess, gather as much information as I can about the industry and trying to figure out where I fit. Anyway, in December, it was probably like October last year, I began conversations and went for a job at a big corporate company in Sydney doing A&R. And I got the job and I was so incredibly stoked and happy. And I had the zoo was finally on track and we were booked out for 6 months and I got this dream job and I'd moved to Sydney in January and packed my life up. The business was great. A venue manager was amazing. I felt like my life had fallen into place for the first time. I'm like, I'm an adult, you know, I need an income and the zoo wasn't necessarily offering that for me. So I needed to look elsewhere and how I could survive financially. So anyway, I got a job, moved to Sydney, the zoo's fully booked, great shows. We just had Soho booked, San Cisco, you know, Cub Sport, these bands who would never play the zoo are playing the zoo. And just,
Yeah.
I'm in the best place. Anyway, coronavirus comes, I lose my job, my business shuts down, I have to move home. For the first time in my life, I'm on Centrelink. I've never had Centrelink ever. I've had a job since I was before legal age. Like I've had at least 2 jobs my whole life. And so for the first time in my life, like I felt like I had nothing and I felt like I'd failed. I felt like who knows what's going to happen with the venue. Like the job I had was gone. Like it was just a bad time, you know. It was just like, and like, I don't know, it was just not nice. It was hard. And it filled me with a lot of doubt. I think like losing that job as well as having the business shut down completely all at once with no end in sight was just this moment of, what am I doing with my life again? And what have I done to support myself? And I tried to look on Seek and like, you know, I'm like, what else can I get a job at? Or what else can I do? And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll go pack shelves at Woolies. Like that's where I was at. I was like, I need money and I can't rely on that job keeper and who knows how long that's going to go. So I just felt very lost, I think, like probably every single other person in the country.
That's, I mean, that's such a relatable story and like a terrible story, Pixie,
Yeah.
honestly, like to put in all that hard work and to have like this hard pause for who knows how long. What, you know, obviously you were keeping yourself busy, but like, what was it that kept you kind of mentally strong through that time? What have you done? Like, what's your kind of tips for people? If you have any.
I've got this saying that I love and I always try and refer to it whenever I get in a bit of like a mind, like what am I going to do when I get in like this state of panic? And it's never the situation, but your thoughts about it. And I always bring myself back to that. And it's like, how are you thinking about this? Like, you know, it's like, this is a situation if you think about it this way, but if you think about it this way, it's better. So I always try and maneuver my brain to, you know, thinking about things in the most positive way possible. And it's not always possible to do that. I get some people can't do that. But I always try and do that. And even when I lost my job, and that was probably the hardest part of it all, because, you know, I thought I was set. That was my career for the rest of my life. That in the zoo, I was so set. And when that all fell away, I was just like, oh my God. And I thought about it and I was like, okay, you're back in Brisbane. The zoo's not gone. It's still there. let's figure it out. And for a really long time, since coronavirus, probably up until about a month before we announced our reopening, I was pretty adamant we weren't going to open until we could have 500 people again, because that's what we survive on. We don't survive on 100 cap shows because they're just too small. And so
you need 500 people to make it financially viable.
Pretty much. Yep. And so until we had that, I was like, I don't know how we can do it. We could open the doors for 100, but we're not going to be able to, we can't make that money through the bar because we don't take tickets. We give all the ticket money to the bands pretty much every time. So we were relying on the bar, and with 100 people, what if people drank water? And what if people only have one drink? Like we can't survive that. So then it was literally just one morning I woke up and I was like, you know what? Fuck that attitude. You can figure it out. Like, figure this out. Like, you have a venue, people want to play. How can you make this work? And I don't think I had spent one day on the couch watching a TV or like crying in bed. Like, I couldn't do that. You know, I have this, like, every second I'm not working, I feel like I'm not moving forward. So I'm a bit obsessed with it, and it can probably be a problem. Like, my mum, when we'll go over to dinner, she's like, eyes on me, close the laptop. Like, she has to like pull, and I'm like, no, mum, but like, she's right. Like, I'm very.
That's the business owner's lot though, isn't it, Pixie?
Oh, I go to movies at my friends' houses and I'm sitting on my laptop. I take my laptop. It's like a security blanket. I'm not on it. So I can't not work. But yeah, I think it was just a change in mind shift and just keeping that. It's never the situation, but your thoughts about it. You know, if I hadn't lost that job, the zoo wouldn't be open right now. I'm so sure of that, because my focus would have been on the job. And so, yeah, I think losing the job was great because it means that the venue's open. Maybe it wasn't the right thing for me. And so there'll be something else that pops up, you know, everything happens. And yep, absolutely.
Hey, so, I mean, one thing that I reckon this has really highlighted for music lovers and, you know, people who work in the industry is the existence of venues that still exist purely to, you know, to host music and be that kind of breeding ground, particularly for younger, more independent artists. What are your thoughts on, you know, the kind of suffering that venues have been through at that level through coronavirus? Because I know you've been quite vocal about that.
Yeah, I think, the suffering from venues I think the local artists, Jock always said, she's like, lean on your local artists. And she said that one of the hardest years the zoo ever had was when there was something to do with fire exits, so they had to reduce their capacity significantly and they could only have 200 people. And she said it was the hardest year they ever had, but they survived on locals. And you know, right now, hardest year I've ever had, completely surviving on local artists. So I think local artists they're the foundations of live music. They are the most important part of live music. And if you don't nurture them and support them, they're never going to get any bigger than where they're at. So I think, you know, every band that's up here started down here. So I feel like it's so important to focus on them and give them the opportunity to play, as much as, you know, when we were pre-COVID, our local nights weren't financially viable at all, but it was still important to have them. So yeah, grassroots local artists are integral to our operation as a venue, and I think nationally they are. But as a venue, the troubles of opening with just local artists is we rely on internationals quite a lot. Like, I think we were fully booked for September, and all but every single Thursday, Friday, Saturday, September was completely booked, and all but 2 nights were internationals. So until the borders open, we lost every show except for 2 Australian shows, which then also lost because they were not local shows in Brisbane. So like, without having that free flowing, you know, people coming through to Queensland, it makes it really hard. And then on top of that, obviously the venue caps, so we're only 100 now, where we could have usually done like 400 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so there's a lot to navigate at the moment. Yeah.
Well, at least Brisbane, on a local scene level, you have quite a lot of good, you're a bit of a music powerhouse, Brisbane, I always like to think. There's always lots of great acts coming out of Brisbane. I guess the last thing is, and then what it really highlights for me, is the importance of people getting around a venue like the zoo, like music lovers, you know, coming out, seeing shows, you know, making sure you're hitting that 100 capacity every night, particularly in an area like the Valley where it's gentrified so much over the last couple of decades. I'm guessing rents and all those kinds of things just keep going up and up and up. So keeping an institution like that in the Valley, it comes down to people coming out and seeing shows.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. So we launched a series called like an anti-social series. We launched them actually on Saturday. We had our first shows, and people coming to those shows, it's just like they're the real genuine music lovers and the supporters. And we had to implement, to combat the fact that we only had 100 people in the room, we implemented a minimum spend of $40. Mm-hmm. And so I was really nervous to see like how people would respond to that, but I haven't had to explain myself once. It's just been so nice. It's like it's just a relief, because without that we couldn't open. But you know, it means people can come in, they can buy a drink. We've actually included merch, so they can buy Zoom merch with it. So people have just overall been just so supportive of reopening. It's been amazing. I guess now it's like, now that we've opened, there is a whole nother set of challenges for us as a venue, and that is the restrictions and people adjusting to things like seating. And for me at the moment, that is my biggest challenge, and my biggest struggle is implementing all these new rules and getting people to adjust to a new way of life at gigs. And who knows how long that will be. I hope not that long, but yeah, it's very stressful at the moment putting these shows on, because the second someone stands up and goes to the front of that room, all it takes is someone to video, like 5 people at the front of the stage, and we're all over social media not doing the right thing. So it's really, it's actually harder now doing these gigs with less people seated than it was with 500 people standing. It's very weird.
And in terms of looking after yourself and your own mental health coming out of this, you know, what do you do? What's part of your routine week to week to make sure that you're keeping on top of things? You know, are you an exerciser? Are you a boxer? Are you a gamer? Are you what?
I love surfing.
Cool.
So I try and get down to the water as much as I can. It sucks because it's so far away. So on a daily basis, I don't know, I try and get more sleep. I've learned how important sleep is for your brain. Surfing and sleep, I think. And I like audiobooks. I think my brain never, ever switches off at night. So I'm listening to audiobooks before I go to bed. And that definitely helps me calm.
And you have the joy of not living in lockdown, unlike us down here in Victoria, where we're still bound to our homes. I'm in some respects, I'm jealous of what you're going through.
Yeah.
I'd love to go for a surf as well. Hey, Pixie, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really enlightening, and you know, we're thinking of you up there. It's been a hard story for everyone in the music industry, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
No worries. If you've made it to the end, make sure if you're going through a tough time as well, you call the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to anyone who works in music and the extended arts sector. You can call that number on 1-800-959-500, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.